It has come to this. A father with his tiny toddler tucked inside his shirt, drowned in search of a better life. According to reports, Oscar Alberto Martinez Ramirez decided to swim across the Rio Grande with his wife and child in a bid to seek asylum in the US. His wife, Tanya, watched as her loved ones succumbed to the currents. Seen here in the red, she is led away bereft.
The report shows that these people tried to cross the river to the United States. The girl jumped in the water and they drowned when he tried to rescue her.
Back in their native El Salvador, their deaths have stirred anger and much anguish as their family mourns.
This was her favourite doll, this one. She had it every time her mother got her ready.
Photos show a family with their lives ahead of them. Valeria was not yet 2 years old.
The last message my son sent me was on Saturday. He said, "Mama, I love you."
Mamá, te amo, me puso.
He said, "Take care of yourselves because we're fine here." When I read that message, I don't know, it made me want to cry because I saw it as a sort of goodbye.
The tragedy emerged as Democrats in Washington passed a bill calling for extra cash to address the conditions in migrant detention centres.
Speakers recognized for 1 minute. Thank you, Madam Speaker. This situation is child abuse. It is an atrocity that violates every value we have, not only as Americans, but as moral beings.
Donald Trump says he will veto it. But deaths like Oscar and Valeria's on America's borders may make such a hardline stance difficult to hold.
Well, the grim border drowning underlines the perils facing many migrants trying to get to the United States. My colleague Jonathan Crane is tracking this story for you. A very, very disturbing, horrifying picture there. Has there been any reaction?
Yes, lots of anger, lots of sadness, as you'd expect. A potent reminder, really, if it was needed, of the risks some people are willing to take to try and get a better lives for themselves and their family, because often these personal stories do get lost in the whole immigration debate. Now, what appears to have happened in the case of the Ramirez family is they were trying to actually access the US legally. They were trying to request asylum. But what is happening is that these people are having to wait on the Mexican side while the US courts process the application request. And that process has been really slowed down in recent weeks and months, meaning that it could actually take months and even years for these people to have their case heard. And I think that's led to a lot of frustration. The Ramirez family were apparently frustrated, and critics say this is what's pushing these people, like the Ramirez family, to take these risks despite the dangers ahead of them.
Yeah, very, very troubling indeed. How about the detention centres across the border?
Yes, there's these detention centres across the border. Now, in the case of the Ramirez family, if we use that as an example, even if they had managed to make it across the Rio Grande, there's every chance they would have been arrested and prosecuted and separated from their daughter, Valeria, who tragically died. Now, that's because last year, as part of Trump's zero-tolerance policy, adult migrants risked prosecution for crossing the border. Families were separated. Now, although the separations have stopped, hundreds of children still do remain in detention centres. Public access has been very limited, but recently a group of lawyers did go into one in Clinton, Texas, and were shocked at what they found. One of them said the children had no soap or toothpaste, and that she'd never seen such inhumane conditions. Let's listen.
When I interview children in immigration detention, I try to sit near them because we're talking about such traumatic and sensitive topics. It's a way I try to build rapport, but it was difficult to sit near some of the children at Clint because the stench was so awful.
So some very shocking words there. It follows comments there by a Justice Department lawyer. Now, last week she tried to argue at a court hearing that children didn't need soap or toothbrushes to have safe and sanitary conditions. That's what's required by law. Now, that has obviously provoked also a very strong reaction. We've got a tweet here that went viral, actually, from Michael Scott Moore. Now, he was kidnapped by Somali pirates. He said that they gave me toothpaste and soap. The implication, of course, being that the US treats migrants less humanely than pirates do their captives.
Now, of course, what's so striking is that picture of the drowned father and child are so eerily reminiscent of something that we had here as well, of Alan Kurdi, the Syrian child who also drowned on a Turkish beach. Could this be a turning point in the migration debate in the US?
We heard about that Democratic bill aimed at improving the conditions in the detention centres, but Democrats and Republicans have always locked horns about this issue. That bill is probably going to get voted down in the Republican-controlled Senate. And of course, remember, Donald Trump made cracking down on illegal immigration one of his big campaign promises for 2016. It's likely he'll do the same again when he runs for re-election. 283 people died in 2018 trying to cross from Mexico into the United States. Despite these statistics, there's been little sign of US policy changing. It's all about creating a deterrent. Now, the Trump administration has put a lot of pressure on Mexico to take some responsibility. We've seen Mexican troops deployed at the southern border. Hardline Republicans will say it's up to countries like Mexico, other Central American countries, to sort things out their end.
And in the meantime, of course, the people are stuck between a rock and a hard place. Jonathan Crane, thank you. Greatly appreciate it.